a little bit briefly about myself, who is I guess new to these sessions. I started my Salesforce journey 7 years ago in 2013. So it's been a while. Probably like most of us, I started my Salesforce journey with implementing Sales Clouds and Service Clouds. And about, I think already probably like 4 years ago, all the marketing tools and marketing platforms really started to boom. And all implementations since then were obviously multi-cloud solutions and multi-cloud implementations. So I had a chance, an opportunity to work with small, medium, and very large enterprises, and also to be able to be part of the team on implementing all of these various and different solutions. And almost 1.5 years ago, I started my own journey, and I opened my own consultancy agency here in London. And since then, obviously, my focus a little bit shifted, and I found a big passion in a tool. Probably you obviously know name of the tool is Pardot, and probably 70% of my effort I now put into actually implementing Pardot. Obviously, you probably know Pardot always comes together with Salesforce CRM. So I'm obviously not forgetting any Salesforce skills. I use my Salesforce skills and apply them on a daily basis. So in terms of today, I have put this presentation together, and I want to share with you all the, I guess, theory and practical experiences that I came across and what I apply when I'm implementing Pardot for businesses from scratch, or also questions that come up for businesses that already have Pardot. For some reason, it's not working as expected, or obviously they're looking to evolve, improve, and how then we at ParetoPi actually help them. So without further ado, thank you everyone for joining, and I will kick in with my presentation. The next slide, obviously, is a slide that I must show, and it's safe harbor slide. So I just want to make sure I present it to you and you don't make any buying decisions based on what you see or I say today during this presentation. This is not a sales pitch. This is just me sharing what I have done, what I have came across, and what are the best practices. Let's talk about integration with Salesforce. So obviously, you probably know Salesforce is a CRM, Pardot is a marketing tool. We want to make sure, obviously, both work in sync and both benefit each other rather than cause any, I guess, stressors and errors. And errors can happen, and that's why we need to know what can go wrong to make sure we do it right. So I guess first thing first, what you need to be aware, one Pardot instance can be connected only with one Salesforce org. I know with Marketing Cloud, obviously you can connect actually multiple Marketing Cloud accounts to one single Salesforce org. So unfortunately, this is not an option with Pardot. The only option with Pardot, how I can see various business areas, business units can be using Pardot, is obviously by utilizing the business unit feature that was released last year that actually allows you to have and segment Pardot into multiple business units, and you can switch them on the right top corner in that menu where you have a cog. There are, I guess, couple of limitations that I want to obviously share with you, and those limitations are that, unfortunately, assets and files cannot be shared across these multiple business units, as well as prospects. So for a lot of businesses, and if you are in a business that, for example, the same prospect can be related to various business units, business areas, business brands, whatever they are. Unfortunately, you will then need to have a duplicate records in Salesforce. And for most of the businesses, because that's a big no-no, I mean, some businesses still kind of hold a bit until that kind of functionality and prospect sharing will be fully released. And I hope it will, at least in the next year or two. So let's hope for that. The next thing, obviously, that I wanted to share with you, that You can integrate Pardot obviously by default with leads and contacts, but last year they also released an opportunity to connect it with person accounts. So if you have enabled person accounts, you are not left behind. You can still use them and they will function well with Pardot. And in terms of, I guess, understanding and assigning prospects within Pardot, so you can assign the same way in Salesforce. If you replicate all your Salesforce users and all your Salesforce queues within Pardot, you can use the same assignment. And from my perspective, and my opinion is, I'm very happy that we have that Salesforce queue functionality inside Pardot, because this allows us marketeers to have the same specific queues that we have in Salesforce, like sales ready, marketing ready, or pushback to marketing for re-nurture or specific region queues. And we can have them in Pardot and use either Salesforce assignment rules or Pardot automation rules to assign all the prospects that you have and that come in into your business by submitting the forms to queues or users based on specificalities that you choose them to be. And I think this is obviously important information. Probably I'll be very honest up front. Pardot documentation states, and in a small org cases, it is true that as soon as the record change has happened, it will be synced and updated within both accounts within 2 minutes. I have a customer that, for example, has $1 million+ prospects, and unfortunately, because obviously each record takes time to update, and there on the connector there is a queue, and Pardot does updates in 200 record batches. So obviously, if you do update or mass upload to more than 200 prospects, it will take a little bit longer, but technically every 2 minutes. So make sure and don't stress if you do a change in Salesforce. If within 5 seconds it don't appear in Pardot, don't worry, it will happen when it will happen. And another important, I guess, thing to know and be aware, if you're a little bit longer in this field, you probably will know that obviously Pardot has been there for a while, and Salesforce acquired Pardot, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 years ago. And since then, obviously, they have evolved and improved product a lot. As I'm saying that, obviously, in 2019, they released 2 new connectors. So one connector is for all customers that purchased Pardot prior 11th of February 2019, and then the newer and better connector, a V2, for all the customers that purchased the Pardot after 11th of February. And the difference is that the new connector and all new customers, they actually don't need to have a Salesforce dedicated license to connect these orgs. So I guess it's a saving of one full license, and I guess you're getting, I mean, you're in a beneficial position to have the kind of newer release and a newer version of Pardot. The good news are Pardot is actually working on releasing the newer package that will help you to migrate from the old version to new version. They are working on this newer package, and it will be released hopefully soon. But obviously I don't have a specific date, but stay tuned for that. If you're a customer that still has V1 connector, there will be an update. And I guess obviously for us marketers or salespeople who also use Pardot, it's really important to understand, so then what data we have inside Pardot available to us and how we can use that. So by default, there is obviously full sync happening of leads and contacts. And to both of these objects, you can make changes both in Salesforce and in Pardot. And then we have these additional objects, opportunities, accounts, campaigns, and activities. They also sync with Pardot, but they are available in read-only mode. So obviously on a contact and on a lead, you will be able to see their accounts and opportunities. And I mean, all the prospects that exist only in Pardot, you can update their account name, company name. But those ones, obviously, that are syncing from Salesforce, they're syncing as they are, so you should not. And then, obviously, last year there was a tremendous great release in terms of campaigns. So Pardot released a functionality called Connected Campaigns that actually finally allowed us to connect Salesforce campaigns to Pardot campaigns, because historically they used to be two completely separate things. So Pardot campaign always used to be a campaign that relates and is a first conversion point. What was the first conversion point that actually converted that visitor into a prospect? And it could be a contact us page, it could be a paid ad, it could be a gated content or your events landing page. So whatever it was always there, and that was the single truth. And then again, you probably know in terms of Salesforce, so campaigns in Salesforce, they have multi-touch attribution, and every lead and every contact and every person account can have multiple campaigns assigned to them. So that's why there was that discrepancy, that it was potentially challenging in Pardot to see all those campaigns that that prospect was related to potentially base some campaigns on that. But now, I mean, we're in a lucky time when actually we have that information both, and it's syncing from Salesforce as long as you enable that in your account, and it's quite straightforward to enable that. You need to go to the settings and enable connected campaign functionality. Probably the tedious part of that enablement is obviously you need to make sure you choose the record types that you need to sync, and then I mean, you can do mass upload and re-import and connection of these campaigns, or you can do it manually if you don't have them too many, but you need to map and pair physically. You need to make sure you have the same campaigns in Salesforce, the same campaigns in Pardot, and then you need to either through mass upload or through one by one basically pair them together and tell to Pardot that this Salesforce campaign is the same as this Pardot campaign, and then you manually select that functionality. And then obviously let's a little bit talk about activities. So luckily now we can see all prospect activities inside Salesforce. If you are kind of on the older functionality version still, you're probably using Visualforce pages. Hopefully are not in Classic, but in Lightning. But in Lightning, they obviously have Pardot activity components that you can add on your page, and they really nicely display on the right-hand side of the page or wherever you place them. And obviously, you probably know that now Pardot has released an update, and you can actually get landing pages, forms, and other Pardot assets as physical objects inside Salesforce. So you can also now run a reports and relate those interactions with those landing pages, forms, and assets on a campaign itself. So that's I think is a big step forward that they made. And then a little bit on the custom objects. Obviously, you can integrate Pardot with custom objects. It comes with an extra cost, unfortunately. But if you have key objects that you want to sync to Pardot, but then you need to be mindful. Obviously, there needs to be a reason why you want to have custom objects, and main reason would be, do you want to segment based on the data that you have in a custom object? I guess there needs to be probably a bigger purpose that you can definitely discuss with a consultant, or if you are a consultant, I guess you probably need to understand why would be that specific and key big reason why business needs to pay more and invest to actually buy this additional custom object functionality. And then obviously when you are setting up all these objects within Pardot and Salesforce, you need to make sure you have the right permissions in your account. And now as I talk about this, let me exit and I'm going to go inside pardot.org. And obviously what I want to show to you is that if we go to Pardot Connectors, when there are missing permissions, you will gonna see this yellow warning here, and it will gonna say view missing expected Salesforce permissions for your connector user. And this will be obviously the place where you will gonna check and Pardot will gonna tell you all those additional fields and objects that you need to map to make sure all required fields and all required objects are syncing fully and correctly. So by going to, and I'll click OK, by going to admin connectors, you're gonna see if you have still unconnected fields and objects that you need to connect, you're gonna see them here in a pop-up, and you need to go in your Salesforce permissions fields, field accessibility, and update field permissions to make sure these disappear from here. And if I go into the presentation mode back, I guess now I'm probably getting to my favorite part of this presentation, and it's those promised questions that we as consultants or we as a business need to ask ourselves to make sure the solution that we're implementing will gonna be a great fit now for us, and also key questions that we need to ask to make sure our solution is also bulletproof for the future. And I now, and actually I used to think we need to ask these questions even like 5 years down the line. Yes, but I just feel nowadays like businesses are changing so rapidly. So I have in my presentation, I have what I'm focusing on, and I think the answers that we need to get are at least, they should at least cover the business in the next year or two, but as well as obviously we need to make sure the solution is scalable that we are building. And I guess all the potential maybe future requests by the changes and the decisions that we make now will also be possible in the future when business needs them. So the question number one is, how is your website built, and do you have a custom CMS or a WordPress? So that's question number one, because obviously when we are purchasing Pardot, one of the key functionalities and desires for the business will be to integrate our Pardot account with the website. And we need to understand what they're using to understand what kind of forms we're going to build for them. Because you probably know in Pardot, there are two form options. So we have form handlers and we have forms. From my perspective, I used to still do a couple of form handlers, and maybe there's still necessity for them. But to be honest, I would always highly recommend to choose the form option. And as I talk about it, I'm gonna go inside my Pardot and I'm gonna explain what exactly I mean. So if I go to marketing, if I go to forms, here we have two options. So it's forms and form handlers. So what are form handlers? So form handlers are basically a way for us to build all the fields that we want simply. And if I click on edit form handler, I can simply add additional fields that I want that are available for me here in Pardot. And obviously I'm gonna name the field. And when I'm creating these external field names, I need to have a development and developer mind in place, and I should choose names that will be easy, logical for developers then to implement in the backend of the website. Meaning, I don't want to create API names that are, I mean, let's imagine this is a question. Let's imagine it asks, how old are you? So if you are a developer, you probably know that this is not great API name. and it will be very hard to work with something like this. So I mean, either you would do how old are you, or you could do how old are you. So whatever is best for the API in the backend to connect, and I guess simpler to maintain, because these will be the external fields that you will be giving to website developers. So that's one thing to know. And obviously when you are creating form handler, so form handler is basically a HTML code that you give to website developer, and then they add and put around website default, I guess, CSS styling. So from the development perspective, form handlers are much easier, but why they're not the solution to go forward long term, in my opinion, is that nowadays, especially, I have seen, because form handlers, they don't have any built-in bot protection, there's a lot of dummy submissions coming through these forms. But the reason why to go with them, if for example business already have a website and they just want to have quick start implementation ASAP, I guess you just can build these form handlers. You can give these field API names and submit URL to pass them information, but then obviously you really need to work with website developers of that company and really flag that you would expect them then to build in bot protection on the website itself. And I guess also from the field logic management perspective, then website developers can build in their own logic in terms of all the dependent fields, dependent values, etc., etc. So if you're going with the form handler option, this will be all managed and built by the website developers. So as a consultant for you, technically, it's kind of less intense job. And then if I talk about forms over here, so forms are basically iframes. So, and what is important, I'll just gonna quick next. I'll just quickly create this test form. Obviously, what is the, I guess, key thing here, that if you're going with the form option, you need to work with website developers for them either to build this layout template with that custom CSS styling, or you need to create it yourself. But obviously form is an iframe and it will be black and white with no styling after you save it and embed it on your website. That's why to actually build a form, it will be a little bit more time consuming in the beginning, and you need to make sure you style it already within Pardot and then place it on a website. But then once you place this, I guess, form in an iframe on your website, what it allows you to do, and these are very, I mean, fantastic features that it has. So A, you can enable bot protection, reCAPTCHA. So Pardot offers that to have by default built in. You can add not you link, meaning this is probably a very popular use case for, let's imagine, educational institutions, universities, schools, hospitals. Potentially they have a form open in the reception room, and a lot of people just come in and submit that form all the time there. So, I mean, if it's just a website form, maybe you're not going to enable it as a kiosk mode, because kiosk mode is obviously more for trade shows and events on the iPad, so it automatically opens and comes to the new one. But if you come across that multiple people can maybe use sometimes the same laptop, it's great to have this not you link that people can click on that form, and it will automatically remove all pre-populated data on that form. So these iframes are great, and you get these three functionalities by default built in that you can use. And if I click next, so another really great feature of Pardot, and by going obviously with this form solution, is that every time somebody submits the form, you have also access to these completion actions, but you also have access to these completion actions on the form handler. So I'm covering at the moment both form handler and form. So every time somebody submits the form, on the website, you can add tag, you can add them to the list, you can add them to Salesforce campaigns. You can maybe, if it's a specific form, maybe more product related. And if somebody, obviously, if somebody requests an interest in a specific product, you can potentially automatically use already Salesforce active assignment rule to regionally, based on the city or country where they're at, what they submitted, to already assign to team that is in the same region to call them up and I guess proceed with that request. And then you can assign to group, queue, users. You can update some custom field values, default field values. You can create Salesforce task. You can do a lot of bunch of the stuff. And when I click next, the final step is obviously for me to confirm and review everything that I have built here. But from the development perspective, once you have finished this form, what you will gonna get, and hops, here, by clicking on this arrow, I can click view HTML code, and this HTML code is this iframe that I'm talking about, that you need to make sure by applying the styling template, the style will already be included, so you can then just grab this iframe and place it on a website on the right page. So that's, I guess, in terms of Pardot and forms. So that's why I guess you really need to understand what is their website solution, and then based on the website solution, you will be then be able to make decisions in terms of what form solution you will be advising them to do, also based on their budget and the timelines. And let me click this as a presentation. And question number 2, how many forms on your website do you have and what they are? Obviously, a lot of businesses will be asking you to send a proposal or a quote, or if you're a business yourself and you're just learning how to implement, obviously you need to understand what will be the timeline of this implementation. So by knowing how many forms, how many fields in each form, and what is form complexity, will give a good insight and understanding, sorry, for the person who will be implementing that, how long will it take? Question number 3, do you have any set automations on your website? So potentially there are some automations related to these forms, to website pages, maybe some tracking, maybe some page clicks. So it's really good to know and understand how business's website is functioning, to make sure if there is something built already on their previous marketing tool, like if they're migrating from Marketo or any other marketing solution, so you know what are those things that you need to replicate or advise where this should be custom built if Pardot cannot do that. So keep this question in mind, note it down. Do you have Google Adwords or Google Analytics? If you don't know, or if you know, great. Pardot actually integrates with Google Adwords and Google Analytics. So you then need to foresee and understand what will be the timeline to actually integrate these things. Obviously, from my perspective, I always actually leave this task to the business itself, but I'm there to guide them how to do that, because basically to integrate Google AdWords and Google Analytics, we as a consultants or you as an internal employee, you need to have account login details. And from a security point of view, I don't believe I actually want to know and ask these details. So I'm actually sitting together with a client, or I share a instruction document where they need to go to actually connect these both tools and connectors, and then I just verify if everything has been connected correctly. So that would be my advice. I don't ask for any other social media platform login details to connect them with Pardot. I just guide business how to do that. Also, to make sure in the future, if they update any passwords themselves on these platforms, and from a security point of view, especially larger enterprises, their login refresh is happening every month. So they need to know, and they need to be on a radar whenever that happens. They're able quickly to update these login details themselves and continue working on their social media platforms. especially because obviously from Pardot you can schedule and create social media posts from within Pardot to post them on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. Twitter and LinkedIn. Yeah, sorry, I'm blanking. Then the next question is, what other application services do you use for your marketing? So obviously, because a lot of businesses, most of the time, luckily for us consultants, they're starting from scratch. So in the discovery session you're having, or if you're brainstorming together with your tool when you're deciding to buy Pardot, you need to create a map of all the tools that you have, Google Analytics, Google Ads, Pardot, Salesforce, custom CMS, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, like potentially Hootsuite, like all these automations and all the tools that you use within the business. And you then need to, I guess, understand and create direct maps which can integrate by default, for which potentially you will need to use Pardot API, Salesforce API, and which maybe you can leave behind because the new tools that you're acquiring will be able to, I guess, have the same functionality already built in. So understanding all these apps and services is key because you need to understand the full map of where the business are and how this can be all connected, because in the end of the day, we're building this connection to be able to automate and mainstream all the processes that business have. So it's really, really important to have that map, I guess even internally, for all people to have a complete full understanding of what tools are used and what tools at the same time should be maintained, because we can't just set up a tool and leave it behind. We need to have a plan when we are maintaining it, and what is the schedule and what are the requirements and who is doing that. Because I mean, if there is no key person, no super user assigned to actually keep track on these things, things will be left behind. We all know that. Then, do you use any social platforms for posting? So many businesses, obviously, because there's only one login details and a lot of people can go on holiday, maybe they can switch turns who is posting what. Maybe they're giving nowadays, I think it's really, really popular to also for big, large enterprises, especially like magazines or during the fashion weeks, a lot of influencers actually take over the social platforms like Instagram, like Facebook, Twitter, and they post instead of the brand. So that's why a lot of brands, they use solutions like Hootsuite or other tools that allow to business to have multiple users, give them different access to this tool to schedule and post also these posts in real time. So that's why also understanding these dynamics and all of the interactions can help you to understand the, I guess, security model, sharing model, user role model, what you will need to build in. And then if yes, how do you use them and how often do you post? And to add to that, obviously, I like Pardot social posting, that it allows, post scheduling, because we know if we go directly to, let's say, Instagram, we can't schedule the post, we just need to post it now. But if you use Pardot to schedule your Twitter posts on LinkedIn posts, you can do that. The only thing, there are 3 limitations that are extremely annoying, but they are there. Hopefully, maybe one day they will be resolved. But with the LinkedIn and post scheduling, so the limitations are you can post only one image. You can't mention people in your post. So when you're typing in a post inside Pardot to post something on Twitter, and let's say you're typing "thank you at Virgin Media for helping us," so unfortunately you can't do that at mention to the company, to the brand, to the person. And then the third limitation is you can't post videos. So you can upload only photos, but you can have, let's say, a video link. So these are also the things you obviously, that's why you need to ask and understand how business is using these social platforms. You need to be very upfront of all the limitations, because you don't want to be in the position when you say, yes, Pardot has a social posting tool and I'm going to help you to set it up, and then business have in mind they will be able to do X, Y, and Z, and then it comes end of the day, you're trying to help them to create and schedule these posts, and then you understand you actually can't do that. And to eliminate that frustration, it's I mean, it's really important to know these limitations. And potentially that's why I mean, it's kind of another add-on that business can potentially will need to buy, is maybe they then need to invest in Salesforce Social Studio. That is kind of a little bit more robust tool that has more flexibility and functionality. So I guess asking all these questions, then going back as a consultant or going back as a business and understanding what we actually need to get this all our dream implementation across the line, how long it will going to take to build us, and how much I guess budget we need to have to fulfill all our desires. That's why we need to know the questions, what to ask and what to think about, to make sure we are, I mean, we have a clarity. Clarity is a good thing to have in this life. Then what are current marketing processes? So I'm referring here for specific, what are the internal processes, like what is the process of business getting a new prospect? So what are all these channels this prospect can come from? How this prospect obviously gets inside this marketing tool or inside the CRM tool, like what does it take? And then how do marketing team handle this new prospect? How do marketing team then pass it to sales team, or marketing team and sales team work at the same time? Is there a big chaos, or do they have like established kind of working process? How do then maybe marketing make sure? And what would be obviously my recommendation, making sure that there's kind of MQL, marketing lead qualification process in place, to make sure you probably prospect reaches specific amount of points before they are being pushed and further redirected to a salesperson, or they are just redirected automatically. So it's good to understand where business is in terms of their current setup, and then based on all your experience, you can then understand and advise them, okay, so sounds like there is a place for the improvement, and this is how you can benefit by creating these flows, by understanding what is your MQL, what is maybe minimum viable, how marketing can actually pamper this lead and make this lead ready by sharing already maybe some welcome I guess stories, journeys, use cases, some content, some graphics, some I guess introducing them to the brand and to the business itself. And when the person is kind of fully aware, this is what I'm actually dealing with, then they're actually maybe only ready to speak with a salesperson. So we need to understand where business is in terms of their kind of process. We need to understand, is there a place for the improvement, because now business has invested in this fantastic tool that can help them to nurture, to welcome, and to score and grade these leads. So then we really help them to grow and evolve, and then deliver less leads to the sales team, but these leads are quality leads that sales team will actually be able to quicker to turn into a customers, because they will be sales ready, and B, salesperson already in Salesforce will gonna see what this person has done before, which emails they opened, which files they downloaded, how many times they visited the website, which form they submitted. So Pardot, I guess website tracking functionality fully will allow them to get that visibility and transparency, what this person is about. Question number 9, I really like this question. What are your current challenges? Because I mean, we can have a really positive conversation and share, these are all the things we can build for you. But I think what is key is the reason why they chose Pardot as a solution, because they were hoping that finally Pardot will be able to take off some challenges, some troubles, some issues that they have in a business. So by understanding the place where the business is coming from will obviously elevate you and will help you to deliver a solution that actually solves their key challenges and solves their key problems. So always make sure you ask this question. And then, what do you think you are not able to achieve with your current system? So this will further to help you analyze and understand what was the reason why they purchased Pardot, and what is the, potentially key features you actually need to develop and create for the business to satisfy their buying decision, and to satisfy their, I guess, needs, critical needs for the business. Because obviously we all know budget is not infinite, and sometimes we can't deliver all the solution that business wants in one go, because maybe there are some critical things that we need to do, and most of the times that's a question number one. It's integration with website, because maybe their previous product is expiring and the license is finishing, so they want to make sure they migrate everything that is around the website first things first. And then they have more time to set up all the scoring, grading, automation rules, maybe custom style design, email templates, all of those kind of not maybe so crucial things. So I guess understanding what is the current solution not able to do, the reason why they got Pardot in the first place, is key thing, and put it in the phase one. And then if there are restrictions to the budget, then understanding this is what we can deliver to you in a scope 1, and these are all recommended scope 2, scope 3, like depending on the timeline and the budget, as well as by creating and being clear in terms of the vision and deliverables. Obviously, if you're a consultant, this will going to help you to secure a client for potentially a longer period of time. In Q1, maybe they're going to build this. In Q2, they're going to build this. So you need to make sure you build this roadmap, you fully build a clear picture to them, and then you also you build and maintain relationship by keep giving the value. Question number 11, what are current marketing automations? So obviously everything that is potentially on a previous marketing tool that they have, they will be expecting you to rebuild in Pardot. So without just saying, yes, I'm going to migrate your Marketo to Pardot is not good enough, because maybe, we don't know, there is something that Pardot can't have exactly like that. Maybe it will be a little bit better or a little bit different solution, but will achieve the same result. So you really need to have a conversation with marketing people, but also maybe have people who are maybe a little bit longer in a company, who are maybe a little bit more technical, that will be able to explain you and guide you in terms of what they have been doing so far, and how it's from the functional point of view is really working. And then I always ask the question, can I please get access to your tool that you're currently using, so I can investigate it myself, go through the smart lists or however all these other solutions are called that they have there, and really investigate and see it with my eyes to make sure I understand all these rules that are there. Don't just say yes without seeing what you're saying yes to. Question number 12, is there anything you want to automate or streamline? So this comes back to also a previous question. What are the challenges? What are the pain points? Potentially there is something really key missing for them, and potentially they bought Pardot for the reason that they will be able now to automate that. Maybe it's visitor tracking, maybe it's automatic grading. So what are these things they're actually keen and hungry for? Question number 13, where do you see your marketing developing in 1 or 2 years? So every time we build something, we don't only build to satisfy the needs now, we build it also to help business to grow. And we need to understand that not everything that we're implementing now will be the only truth in the future. And we need to understand whatever we build now, how their future vision will be working with what they have now, plus how easy that future vision will be, I guess, added on to already what you're going to build them now. So, I guess the key and the, the ideal world is that you as a consultant or you as a business, you understand what you are building now to make sure all the decisions that you make now, and this probably in terms of Pardot and Salesforce, it comes to certain feature enablement. So sometimes when you enable certain feature, you can't revert it back. For example, I don't know, person accounts. Yeah, so potentially once you enable person accounts, you can't revert them back. Or another key thing, I don't know if you are familiar, like for some customers, they don't use leads, and you can potentially from Pardot, you can create automatically new contacts in Salesforce, and you can eliminate that lead functionality at all. But if you make that decision, you won't be able to go back. So I have came across businesses like that, and I really have questioned them a lot of times. And a lot of times, sometimes they don't have any real explanation why they do that. They don't know. It just have been implemented this way, and they use Salesforce that way. They automatically create contact account and opportunity, and that's the truth that they have. So hence, we consultants, by having this kind of diverse knowledge and experience in seeing all these different solutions, we can fill in the gap and we can let them know, like, leads can be potentially a really beneficial thing for you to have, because maybe you don't want to convert all the leads. Maybe you'll put them as a dead leads, or maybe you'll put leads that are, you'll maybe have that bunch of leads that are not ready to be a contact. So then after 1 year, they can automatically go inside your engagement program, when you can start re-nurturing them and asking them questions. Maybe, are you ready now? And giving them potentially good, I guess, value and content, so they, in 1 year's time, maybe they will gonna convert. So I guess long-term bulletproof solution is the ideal scenario. Question number 14, how many people do you have in a team? So obviously, when you're implementing any CRM, any marketing tool, you need to understand what is the volume of people, because the more people, the more problems, we all know. Especially, we probably know that funny thing. I mean, not funny thing, it's not funny thing. Coronavirus. I mean, why it keeps spreading? Because people are just still moving around. So sometimes the more people are moving around, the more problems we cause in the world. So we need to understand how big will be the org, who will be using that org, and then based on their roles and their, I guess, required tasks that they will be doing in that tool, you'll be able to then relate them to roles that you'll be choosing. And in Pardot, by default, you have 4 roles. It's admin, it's marketing manager, it's marketing, and it's sales. So these are the 4 roles, and I mean, based on their requirements and things they do, you will need to map them. But the good news are, maybe you need to have some custom roles for big enterprises, large companies with I mean, more than 50 users. Sometimes you need to have these custom roles, and especially when you would need to have these custom roles, the good example would be maybe agency. You would want to create a custom role for the agency, because maybe you want to give them access to be able to create all these types of assets, all these landing pages, layout templates, email templates, but you want to restrict a visibility to them, to any prospect, any like sensitive business information and data. So that's why understanding who are all the people, who will be those people they envision to use these tools, to then let them understand and know, will the Pardot roles be enough to them? Do they maybe need to look into custom roles? And then how many people will be managing the system? So obviously, and this comes back to V2 connector also, when you're setting up roles within the Salesforce with the newer version of the Pardot, you're also selecting there who is admin and who is marketing user. And sometimes maybe marketing user is just marketing user in Salesforce based on the permissions and sharing that they have there. But that marketing user needs to be an admin user inside Pardot. And if IT team puts that person as a marketing user inside Salesforce, they'll be marketing user inside Pardot, and they won't have will not going to have full functionality that they need. So these are the things we need to align in the beginning, just to make sure all right people who needs to be who will be looking after Pardot, they're set up correctly inside Salesforce, so they have access to everything they need. And then what access is required to different users. So that kind of sums up everything that I shared with you previously. So you fully will need to understand the role hierarchy and the mapping, so you're able to build and create all the users correctly and give them the right access to the tool, so they're fully functional in terms of their role in the business. How many marketing journeys do you have? So this is the question that answers why we need to ask these questions. And I'll exit this presentation and I'm going to go inside Pardot. And I'm running a little bit obviously over because I'm sharing a lot. So this presentation will go a little bit over. I hope that's okay with you. If not, this session will be recorded and we'll be releasing it in the next months, so stay tuned. Then in terms of, I guess, what are the current journeys that you have? So I just have I know it's a little bit big and scary journey that I have here, but you need to understand what are those potential automatic journeys they have inside their business or they have already built in their other platform that you will need to rebuild to them. So that's why asking a login details, or at least having an admin that demo them, so at least you can see and understand, because obviously everything that you see here on the screen doesn't take 1 second and it's not migratable, so you can't migrate a journey inside Pardot. You will need to physically build it and test it. So understanding what are the journeys and how long it will gonna take you to build them inside Pardot is key. Then moving to the next question number 18. What are current successes you were able to achieve in marketing? So maybe there are key things that they're doing and they're doing really well. Maybe these are landing pages with the gated content, landing pages with white papers, some key things that are really working for them, some maybe webinars that they're organizing, and the way they're organizing, they have a really nice process already. So understanding these successes and how these successes can be brought again on this platform is key for the business, because they want to maintain all the good that they have. Do you think you would be able to segment your current customers based on the fields and values you have in Salesforce? So this is really, really crucial and important. And I always say data is a king, because they can tell you, oh, I want to have in Pardot these segmented lists by region, by a region, by I don't know, by specific interest, by product, by color, by interest, by God knows what. But then you need to ask the question, okay, we can have any type of dynamic segmented static list you want, but do you have the data against all these prospects so we can actually filter that and get it inside? Because one is want, but B, we then need to understand, do we need to do some and let them know already in advance? So all the data things, from my perspective, business kind of need to take cares of. We Pardot implementation consultancy, for example, we are not helping businesses with specifically improve their data, because I believe business itself knows their data much better, and they need to understand how they need to manipulate it and fix it so they get all the segmentation that they want to have in Pardot next. So I guess asking this question in the beginning and putting it out there already in the beginning is key, and will only help you and will obviously put you in a good light that you know and understand that and foresee potential issues that they will gonna have. How many new leads you get per day, week, and month? So the reason for this question is, if it's a small business, potentially maybe they want to push all the leads automatically to Salesforce because the volume is small. Maybe they get 5 new leads per week and they have a sales team that can engage with all 5 during that week. So that's absolutely fine. But if business will gonna tell you that I'm getting 570 leads per week.
It's 21 hours.
And I have 570 leads per week, and I have only 4 salespeople working, then you need to understand, and this is where the MQL and SQL comes in place, because you need to understand what will be then the process, what will be the qualification to push only valuable leads further to the sales team. So that's why understanding the volumes, what you're dealing with, to then guide business on the best practices. Which are the most active days in terms of new leads? So I mean, this can be maybe related to social posting. This is just in general understanding the volume and hits on the website and when the numbers can fluctuate. Potentially this will give you some answers to the questions and will help with the implementations. Then how marketing and sales are dealing with the leads. So you need to understand what are their current sales and marketing relationships. Most of the times, especially in the beginning, before they have any marketing tool, these both teams are disconnected. So marketing and sales are not really working together. So Pardot is potentially that platform that can really help to start to help and kind of embrace these for these both teams to work together. If you actually build some automations and processes within Pardot. So asking this question is also valuable. How leads are currently being processed. So understanding after they submit the form, what happens after the form submission? What is the logic there? What is working, what is not working, and where the business is looking to get to? Do you think there is something that can improve from the moment when lead is recorded until it is handed to marketing representative and sales representative? So again, understanding and asking good questions. Do you have a preference center, and what are your current opt-in lists? So by default, Pardot obviously has a preference center, and you can build these opt-in lists into the preference center. Very honestly, the preference center is not really presentable, and it doesn't have any nice dynamic rich functionality. So most of the times, 95% of the times, business actually build a custom preference center on their website, on their CMS, or any other platform. So understanding where they are in terms of their preference center, understanding how they're capturing people inside leads, and then if they have their preference center outside Pardot and outside Salesforce, how then Pardot Data can communicate and connect with that preference center, and it will be obviously API. So that's why sometimes don't underestimate the time of the solution development, because potentially you'll need to involve developers for them to really, I guess, connect Pardot forms through the API with their custom preference center to make sure all the preference centers values and opt-in lists are actually syncing and working. And this can potentially be, I mean, a longer piece of work. We have 3 questions left. Do you have any automations to add people to this list? So this on the back of the preference center, so how they're currently managing all their opt-ins and how you need to adopt maybe their current solution to the new Pardot implementation. What Pardot edition are you looking to purchase or have purchased? So the same as Salesforce, Pardot also have 3 editions, and obviously Enterprise edition, it has it all. Professional edition, I mean, that's the first edition. It will not gonna have all the functionality. It will not gonna have all the add-ons, and the engagement studio programs, file storage, number of automation rules are limited to a specific number. So you need to understand, especially if they're migrating from a different tool, how much they have there, how much they will gonna need in Pardot, and is that edition that they have purchased or looking to purchase will be sufficient. So that's where your knowledge will be very helpful and I guess desired to solve this. And last 2 things. How big is your lead and contact database, and are you looking to sync all leads and contacts into Pardot? So this is very, I guess, crucial and important, because by default, when you purchase Pardot, it comes with a database of allowance of having 10,000 mailable prospects. Yes, only 10,000, and 10,000 for some businesses, maybe that's a lot for smaller agencies. For large enterprises, 10,000 is nothing. They can have 500,000, they can have 700,000, they can maybe have 2 million. So then, I mean, is it maybe then Pardot a great solution? So we need to ask these numbers, and before, especially if they still have not purchased Pardot, maybe we need to advise them. Maybe they need Marketing Cloud, maybe they need, maybe they need Pardot business units. I mean, how they're actually operating, what are the leads, contacts, numbers that they have, and do they want to have all these people inside Pardot? Because probably if you don't know, then you will need to manually import all these leads and contacts inside Pardot with their CRM ID to make sure they sync both ways all done correctly. So this is a good question to ask. If 10,000 is not enough, you will need to flag it straight away. You will need to go back to Salesforce, your executive, your sales executive, account executive, and ask them for more. So that's in terms of me today. I really wanted to run through all of these questions, because these are all key questions that I ask when I have a discovery workshop with all the clients that I work with, and these all questions I have learned and accumulated over the last 3-4 years. They have served me really well, and I really hope they will going to serve you well. And I hope this was really insightful and interesting to listen. And let me quickly check if there are any questions. How can I check if there are any questions? Dun, 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 dun. No, this is not the great way to check the questions. I actually exit. Dun, 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 dun. So I see there are no any questions. Is that correct? Oh, there are 5 questions. There are 5 questions. I'm really sorry. So, do you have sandbox in Pardot that could be synced to a Salesforce sandbox? All right. So this is a really great question. So in terms of Pardot, we don't have sandbox. So the same way as Marketing Cloud, whatever you build in Pardot training environment, you will need to fully rebuild in your Pardot production, if I can say so. So you don't get these change sets and these sandbox functionalities that we have inside Salesforce. So it would be basically, if you need to have a proof of concept and connect it with your sandbox, you will need to build functionality in your training environment or in your other Pardot production, and then rebuild it in another in your production environment again. And then does it mean that Pardot form should replace standard web to lead Salesforce form? Yes. Yes, 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 please don't leave it behind, because the reason why you need to have these Pardot forms is because Pardot forms have built-in visitor and prospect tracking functionality, and you don't want to leave that behind, because every time somebody submits the form, they're being cookied, and once they're being cookied, every time they will going to visit your website or interact with any of your assets, you will be collecting all this valuable information about that person. So yes, you definitely want to stop using your Salesforce web to lead forms, and you want to start using Pardot forms and form handlers. Iframe, quite old school with responsive design. I mean, but that's why the layout template that you build will be fully responsive, and the CSS that you're going to add in that layout template will be responsive and cool, up to date. And then does Pardot give you a trial org to play around with, unlike Marketing Cloud? So no, unfortunately, Pardot doesn't have a trial training orgs. I wish it would. Hence, I'm doing these presentations, and I want to show you around and teach you more. Unfortunately, there are no orgs. Please keep requesting, and maybe one day they will come up with. So thank you for the questions. These were actually really, really good questions. I missed the last session. Is there a recording? Yes, there are recordings. We are recording these sessions, and in the next couple of weeks, we will be obviously montaging them together, and we'll be releasing them on a YouTube channel. So we're going to be sharing. And then you need to be associated with Salesforce partner in order to be able to request Salesforce for training environment. I mean, obviously, so when you purchase Pardot, in your Pardot instance, you can also have an additional training environment. So you will need to request it with Pardot support to give you that free training environment, but you will only be able to get it once you actually purchase and get the Pardot instance itself. Are you working from a training environment? So yes, those things that I was showing you was actually shown from the training environment. It's not production. I would never use production environment for the training. And then I meant by requesting Salesforce via partner community. I mean, so yes, I mean, potentially there are means and ways and best and better channels how to request it, but obviously your account executive, your partner community, your, I mean, whoever is your direct contact that can give you the org. Is it possible that prospect conversion report shows also those prospects that were imported from Salesforce and took an action? So the answer is, if you import prospects from Salesforce inside Pardot, they are there, but they're not cookied. So that's why all the prospects that you have inside your Pardot, and you would need to, I mean, potentially create an welcome journey, engagement journey. You need to have and allow Pardot have that first interaction when they actually click on something and when they submit the form. So then you can cookie the device that they're using. So then you can start seeing all their activities. Before that, before cookie hasn't happened, and cookies are basically Pardot is tracking all these visitors and prospects, because every Pardot asset has that cookie functionality built in. So before your lead or contact interacts with anything you create in Pardot, you won't be able to see them converting through your assets. I hope I understood the question correctly. Hope. Alrighty. Any other questions? Thank you guys for, I guess, coming. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, we're all sat down at home, and I mean, I want to make sure all the mistakes and all the good and the bad stuff that I have done in the past, I now have a place where to share it. And I mean, it's all about giving back, being good. Once you give back, once you give good, you receive good. So I guess thank you for all the thank yous. Alrighty, perfect, guys. Then I'll let everybody go. Thank you for joining. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for joining. Bye.